Hello, Internet. Ben here with an update for the pet game. I'm going to work, let me find it, on Pet Game. So this is my local, well, gosh, I should talk about why the hell I'm doing what I'm doing. And then apparently I'm going to swear sometimes. So a couple people have asked me about how like the bugs are working or how the game works or things like that. So I thought that maybe it would be interesting to share how that's done, how the game is made. And I thought I would do that by implementing a new feature into the game and recording it. I mean, I'm going to implement it anyway, right? So why not talk about it at the same time? And I have occasionally done things kind of like this before and found that it's actually pretty interesting to talk about what I'm coding. It makes me think about it in a slightly different way, which, I don't know, makes sense, in hindsight. It's like, yeah, why wouldn't it? So I don't know. So I'm kind of looking forward to this. And if it is interesting to people who've been curious about it, then great, I'll keep doing it. And if actually people realize they don't care or don't care about me doing it in this way, then fine, then I'll stop, right? No problem. It's good by me either way. So the feature I'm going to work on first is where I have a link to it here on the things to do. Having pets like foods, having favorite flavors, and this is something that's present in original SciPets, but I'm going to do it a little differently in this new game. I mean, partly it's just kind of uninteresting for me to do the exact same thing as I've already done before, right? That's who wants to do that. But also I think there are ways that it could be a little better. And the main way I think it could be better is actually not doing the disliked part. I mean, this is true in like games across the board, and this trend has absolutely been happening in games. From the 80s to today, there's a shift in how we do a lot of things. And one of those shifts is rather than making someone choose between like a bonus and a penalty, or rather than rewarding some play styles and punishing others, a lot of times, sometimes the negative effects are still valuable, but in a lot of cases it can be more fun for the player, make them feel less, I don't know, punished really, to express things all in positives, and then you just kind of balance around that. So one example that comes to my mind is in classic Dungeons and Dragons. It used to be that when you were choosing what race you were going to play, elf, human, dwarf, whatever, it'd be like, okay, you want to be an elf, like, okay, humans, neutral, whatever, okay, great. Elf, you want to be an elf? Okay, you get like +2 to maybe dexterity or something, but -2 to stamina because elves are, well, I don't know what just popped up there, because elves are, whatever, they're weaker or something physically. And then dwarves would be like, oh, +2 on strength or something, but -2 on charisma because no one likes dwarves, or whatever. Modern D&D says, nah, never mind. Instead, you're just going to pick a bonus, and the whole game is kind of just built around the fact that all your numbers are going to be bigger because you can just do that, right? So rather than picking a penalty that you got to be like, because that makes it harder to choose. You're like, well, yeah, but I want to be an elf who's also, I want to make a strong elf, but now it's harder for me for this reason. Maybe that's kind of the point of the system, but and it still will be. In a newer thing, it'd be like, okay, elves get +2 intelligence and +2 dexterity, and dwarves get +2 strength and +2 stamina, and whatever. They've given you all these pluses all over the place, so it's still better, obviously, to run with those pluses, but it doesn't feel bad because you're not losing a thing that maybe you wanted. And then again, the rest of the game, all the monsters are just a little harder or something. I don't know. They've just kind of they've distributed whatever that -2 was, balancing for. It's just been redistributed into the rest of the game. And I think we can do the same thing here. Reward you for feeding pets foods that you like, but don't punish you for feeding them foods they don't like. And it is absolutely early enough in this game development that would be very easy to just kind of tweak things around that. And that would just come in all kinds of weird and subtle ways, like when I'm making new food items, some of them will just give a little less love or something because I know you're going to get more love from favorite foods or whatever. I'm not even going to think about it consciously because it's going to be part of the game, and I'll just be building based on the needs of the game, and the needs of the game will be a little less about love because you're not being punished for, feeding pets foods they don't like, whatever. I hope that all makes sense. So anyway, so that's one improvement I'm going to make. And then the other thing, I don't know if you would call this an improvement or not, this is what I had open at the beginning, is I was just trying to figure out what really how does taste work? And the answer is like bananas complicated. But in classic SciPets, I think I just kind of picked a few base foods and said, okay, things can taste like oranges or berries or onions or steak or chicken or whatever. And then when things were made out of that, then that contributed. So, if you made a pizza and that had tomato and cheese and steak in it, because, or beef because you put in sausage or something, I don't know. Then it would say, okay, it has those flavors in it, and so therefore, if a pet, doesn't like tomatoes, it's not going to like pizza, right? I don't know. That's a little inaccurate in some ways. I mean, I like pizza, but I don't like raw tomatoes, so that's actually that's an interesting case where it doesn't work. But that I'm a little less worried about. I just wanted to make something that was a little more about the actual flavor of the food, because there were things that would come up where it was like, your pet doesn't like milk, and therefore, it doesn't want yogurt or ice cream or like anything that or bread because it has milk in it, right? So like it just kind of propagated those flavors in very bizarre ways that people didn't like, and people complained about it. So I was looking for something akin to primary colors, but for taste. Unfortunately, it's not remotely that simple, and there's all kinds of interesting things about like. People like spicy food, even though spicy food is supposed to, it's designed isn't the right word, but, plants have evolved to be spicy to discourage creatures with lips, basically, from eating them. It's okay for birds. Why? Because birds don't destroy the seeds when they eat them. They just poop and distribute them elsewhere, which is good for the plant, but human guts and animal guts will destroy the seeds. And so the plants have developed this very specific defense to be like, mammals, don't eat me. Birds, okay, right? And so, but whatever. But people do it anyway, right? So, and all these things about the setting and the color. I think it was this thing or something else that mentioned that a lot of gummy bears will they're all the same flavor, but they're just colored differently. And then when you eat it, you're like, oh, it's I don't know, it's red flavor. It's probably cherry or strawberry or something. When in reality, it might be the exact same flavor as the white and the green and everything else, whatever. Which is really interesting. I'd be very curious now to try, because I feel like white is a very distinct flavor. The fake pineapple. I mean, it rarely tastes like that strong fake pineapple, but I feel like it's different from the reds. Now I'm curious to blind taste. So anyway, so many senses all go into how people perceive taste, right, was the bottom line. So it's like, that's going to be hard. What I found, though, that I think is going to be close was this page, this website. And I was trying to find articles that were like, no, I want like the psychology, the science. I want studies about food, not like, I don't know, I was finding like, Baskin-Robbins says that people who like this flavor are more likely to have these personality traits. And I was like, okay, assuming it's not 100% a marketing gimmick, this still isn't helpful to me because it's just about ice cream or whatever. So I was like, no, I really want the science of flavor. And the moment I saw this picture come up on Google image search or something, I found it somewhere, it's one, whatever. The moment I saw it, I was like, that looks like some science right there, right? That's data. And let me zoom in on this. So we can make like full screen or something. If I can remember any buttons, there we go. And unfortunately, it's blurry, but you can see. So the thickness of the lines is how many like chemical compounds, whatever, are shared between those things. So we've got a thick line between ginger and black tea, apparently. That's interesting. Wouldn't it, thicker than the connection between ginger and cumin, apparently. Just whatever. Someone dated this, right? I believe them. And then this is the prevalence, how common the ingredient is in foods around the world. And they also have some other interesting graphs that show like how different cultures use the different foods and things like that. And there was another really super interesting thing I thought, where a lot of Western foods, we put flavors in our food that are where they share a lot of compounds, whereas in Asian cultures, they've picked flavors that don't share compounds, and it's higher than if you just picked randomly. So as a culture, it has over time, specifically the taste has been, we want things with different flavor compounds in them, versus in Western cultures, like, no, we want things with similar taste. And I look at like this graph up here, which is interesting. I don't see a strong connection between a lot of these lines, not like all these wines over here, but like this is curry. This is what goes into Indian curries, right? Which is so interesting to me. And what do they call? These are just spices, sure, but right, cayenne, ginger, cinnamon, cumin, pepper, coriander, black pepper. Yes, please, put those in my food. Nutmeg even. Yeah, I could believe that. But for sure, cinnamon plays such a strong role in curries. I was very surprised by that, right? But like, where's the connection? And another thing about this chart, though, and that's mentioned on the page, is that they did leave out some lines. So a drawing of the full network is too dense to be informative. Whatever, for their measurements that they do it, and I think those measurements went into those other things that I found. Anyway, how I'm going to use this in Maslow's Pets is, okay, all these connections are super interesting, but I just kind of eyeballed this and went, okay, what are, because they have already done the work for me. Like you could have put these points randomly distributed and just connected lines, and you have a mess of lines crisscrossing all over the place. So what they've done to reduce the mess and make it, give some meaning to the chart, is tried to place on the same area of the page items that are grouped together. So like, vegetable oil here doesn't have a link to lemon juice or something. So if there's no line connecting them, there's no reason for them to be nearby, right? Makes sense. What that has a side effect for me, for the game, that's very useful, is we have similar flavor groupings in a single place on the chart, and so I can look at that and say, oh look, creamy. All these creamy things. Cream is a flavor that is like, you can group a bunch of things into cream and say creamy is a flavor that exists, and therefore we could have pets that say, yeah, I don't like creamy tasting things, and that would include cashews and coconuts, and also I don't want to try and say that cheese because I'll say it wrong. Roquefort? I don't know. Roquefort. I don't know. French. I barely know any. I don't know. It's probably said something weird anyway. Mozzarella. Whatever, right? So whatever. All the cheeses, right? Creamy. Great. Got it. Fish. I thought that was very interesting. Just off the top of my head, if I was going to sit down and do flavors, I wouldn't have listed out fish separate maybe from meaty, but then looking at it, it's like, oh yeah, of course, fish tastes totally different from other meats, right? Many of them. So yeah, and here we have like a lot of fruity things. Here we've got wines and teas with a lot of strong lines, where it's like, yeah, of course the tannics, and I know that tannin is a big deal, right? Some people love tannins. People like me do not like tannins. I don't know what to call this grouping over here, so I'm just calling it oniony. Yeah, so let me show you the thing I made. So I kind of just went down this list and came up with, I started down here. I thought this was so interesting. It drew my eye. I was like, what's this weird group that's totally separate? We have another one up here. And it's like, oh, it's a bunch of mushrooms. It's like, yeah, they've got that really, earthy, mushroomy, and I would say kind of meaty taste. I feel like mushrooms are a great substitute for meat, but so I'm surprised to not see lines, but maybe that's some of the lines that they left off because it would have been too noisy. I don't know. But anyway, so it's like, okay, we got earthy, we got fruity, right? We got the tannins, we've got spicy things, we've got creamy things, meaty, planty, fishy, floral, fatty, oniony, and chemically. When I was like, wine and tea are very different. And whenever I drink any kind of alcohol, the first thing I taste is like, it tastes like a cleaning supplies. It tastes like chemical. Like, it's the most chemically tasting stuff. I don't know why people drink it, but they do. But that's what I taste. That is the strong flavor for me, and I don't like it. So if Ben was going to have a disliked flavor, that would be chemically, and I wouldn't have it. But other people don't mind that, or they get past it, or whatever. So this is the flavor set I've decided on. I could 100% believe, like, I haven't taken grains into account here, right? So maybe as I build out the system, I'll be like, yeah, we really need like grainy things for seeds and stuff like that. Or yeast. Where's yeast? Yeast is really, when I think about bread, really more than the grains, I think it's the yeastiness of it. And that would also go into beers. So maybe in the future, in classic SciPets, there is, I don't know why I say classic SciPets, but whatever. In SciPets, there is beer. You can make beer in various types. I don't have any of that in Maslow's Pets, but maybe later down the line I will, and at that time then I would say, yeah, okay, let's do yeasty. But for now, there's only one bread. It's like a white bread. It's like, whatever. I'm not going to worry about yeasty or grainy flavors, but I'll add them later. So anyway, that was a lot of talking. So I'm using a different video recording program than I usually do. Oh, this one does. Okay, I've already been talking for 14 minutes and programmed nothing. I'm terribly sorry. Has this been interesting? God, I hope so. So anyway, now that we have, that's kind of the let's say, methodology, whatever. This is what I'm going to be attempting to model in the game, right? And there are, let me find the database. I don't care if you see how many characters in the password, because this is my local database. Who cares? You're not going to be able to get to it. So here are all, and if you hack my computer, getting into this database is the least of my worries. So here's all the items in the game. This is like a database viewing program, right? We've got a database powering a bunch of the stuff. It's a little different from SciPets, but in ways that I don't even think matter. So there's a problem, and I knew there's problems from the beginning. Let's show it this way. So there's the main thing that you do with a database is what's called it's relational. This is a relational database, and not all databases are relational, although even the ones that aren't usually have relational capabilities. But whatever. The point of a relational database is that if so like a good example is a user, right? We have a user, and here's my user. It's got an email address. Here are my roles. Here's my hashed password. Here's my name, whatever. These are the properties of the user. But a user is going to have a lot of pets. And a naive way to try to do this would be like add a column called pet1 name, pet2 name, pet3 name, pet1 strength, pet2 strength, pet3 strength, pet1 intelligence, pet2, right? And go on and on and on. That would be a nightmare. If you want to add another pet, it's horrible. If you want to add another stat, it's horrible. That's not a good way to do it. So you take advantage of the relationshipness, the relationalness of the database. So we have another thing, pets. And pet has this super important column called owner that relates back to a user. So user number 3, which is my BennettBenMakesGames account, has this pet called Roy, and multiple, right? I could just change this. I could say, fine, now this pet is also owned by owner 3. And then we'll see that here immediately when I reload. Okay, I was like, oh, I hope it's not broken. Right, fine, we fetched an IOP now, great. So that's the relational part. You have some columns that refer, and so every table has an ID, so that anytime you need to refer to something, you do it by ID. So who's the owner? It's user ID 3. Who, whatever. For items, this is important. For the other way you can do things that's bad, and I should have learned my lesson from like everything else I've done. I thought, I'll do it for the food thing. For the food, it's called serialized. All that means is you take a bunch of data and you somehow turn it into a string, which is a sequence of characters, right? Letters, numbers, whatever. So in this case, and there's a lot of ways you can serialize. The most common way is JSON. So here's some JSON serialization. This column I don't feel bad about. So this is like, here are the use actions. It's an array of arrays, and the first element is the string, take apart. That's obviously what's going to be shown to people. The second element in this array is like some code that tells us where is it going to go in order to make this take apart action take place. So we have turned all that data, right? An array is a list, right? So we've turned a list of lists into a string because then we can put that into a single column. Same thing for the food. This is serialized in a different way. This is using PHP's built-in serialization, which lets me turn it into objects, blah, blah, blah. I knew as I was building this, like, I don't know if I should be doing this, but I was already into it, and then I did it. Now I'm regretting it because here's the problem, and this is why I sorted by tools. So tools I've done the right way. Tools are using a relationship. So let's look at fish kebab. The fish kebab is an item, not edible, which is kind of silly, but it is an equipment. And because not all items are going to have equipments, this is the same thing you'd have, well, whatever, let's just click into it and see. Tool ID number 14, here's tool ID 14. It has all these properties, right? I don't want to put all these properties on the item table because most items aren't going to be equipments. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Most items aren't going to be equipments. And so we don't want to put all these columns on there. It's a mess. But the reason it's useful having a table, so you might say, well, why not serialize it? Why not put all these, we could comma separate these and just smack them into a column. The reason you wouldn't want to do that is it makes it very hard to search. Like if I wanted to find out, what are all my equipments that give any points to nature? Oh, there are none. I can see that when it's in a table, and I can perform that search, and it's very fast to like search on a column. But if it's part of a string, then in order to search that, you have to like take apart the column and say, okay, take apart all the commas, parse them out, do all this nonsense. It's very hard to dig into that information. It makes the data harder to use, basically, which is why you wouldn't do it. So I did it for food in the beginning out of laziness, out of I don't know what, but I didn't do it. But then I was like, okay, I'm not doing that for tools. I can't do that for tools. That's nonsense. And I think classic, I don't know, I keep saying classic SciPets, but SciPets I'm pretty sure does have all the tool stats as columns in the item. So anyway, here's where we're getting into trouble now. I want to have the flavor components of a food item be properties of the food, right? It would seem that I have to, and here's another problem. I want to add a new column to this. What does it mean to add a new column to this? Like, if I add a column here, I can literally go into the structure of this table and say, and this isn't how you would do it for whatever, I'll show you how I actually do it, but you'd say, yeah, I want a new column, and I'm going to call this umami, and it's going to be an integer, whatever, and then every row gets that new column, umami. There's no way to do that here because we have this horrible string thing. I would have to write some program to go through. Right? Again, we've made the data hard to use. This is why it shouldn't be done this way. So my first task, the first thing you're going to see me do, 20 minutes, haven't coded yet, but the first thing I'm about to do is split this up so that it is like tool, where there's going to be a separate table that says here are the item's food properties, and then all these will be actual nulls. And then this would be, a link to item food 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll put all these properties in of food, love, junk, and whack. And whack, by the way, I'm going to get rid of later. I did that as a catch-all, and I'm not liking it. It's too restrictive. But whatever, that's a task for another day. What I'm going to add, though, is columns for all of these different flavors. How earthy is this food? How fruity, tannic, spicy, creamy, etc. And I'm not going to rate these from 0 to 100. That's nonsense. I'll probably just do something like, there's none of that, there's a little of that, there's a lot of that. That might be it. Just because I don't even think a hint matters. So it'll really be like, yeah, there's some, there's a lot, there's none. I think that's going to be it. It can be changed later, right? If it turns out it's like, well, we want a little more granularity, or we want less granularity. Maybe in the end we're like, yeah, that's awfully complicated. All I really want to know is it fruity, yes or no, right? Enough to where a pet would like it or not like it. Although again, we're only going for liking, right? So is it good enough to get a bonus? Right? Is it too fiddly to say, oh, it gets half a bonus because it kind of tastes fruity? Yeah, so maybe it really just should be yes or no. Fruity, yes or no. That's all I want to know. Maybe we don't need these funny oh, it's got a hint of cream, we're not doing wine tasting with our pet foods. Although it'd be funny to have foodie pets who cared more about that. That's something for another time. So anyway, let's start with the basics anyway. Whether or not this is going to be on a scale of 0 to 1 or 0 to 2 or 0 to 100 isn't super important. What is important is that this stuff gets split out. So let me show you how to do this. So I'm coding in, and sorry, I've got two monitors, so if you see my mouse fly off the left side of the screen, I'm actually going to another monitor to pop things up. There's just so much going on, I wanted to split everything up. So this is the second monitor. You can tell by the funky taskbar here. But anyway, so here's the code, right? Here's what happens when a pet finds a garden. These are all the things that can happen based on stats. If you want to take screenshots and dive into it, have a blast. But what this framework has, I'm using a thing called Symfony on top of PHP. A framework called Symfony does all these things. One of these things, it has an ORM called Doctrine. ORM is whatever, object relational. I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. It manages your database. Model is probably what the M is for. I don't know. I feel like I should know, but I'm like, I don't care. If someone quizzed me on that at a job interview, I'd be like, you're asking the wrong questions. Well, what matters is what it does. And what it does is it helps you manage the data in the code in a sane way. It automatically takes care of SQL injection attacks, which I know SciPets is vulnerable to in some places. Maybe I shouldn't say that. And it just takes care of all kinds of things for you so that you won't have problems. The thing I said about SciPets, it is vulnerable to SQL injection attacks, but I did make an effort. I learned about SQL injection attacks making SciPets, and I did go back and clean up a lot of it, but I can tell because weird things have happened in the database. It's like, oh, someone's been messing around in here. That was before. I mean, it's since passed off to someone else. So, but anyway, whatever. Let's just move on. So, what I was saying before, when you're using an ORM like Symfony, especially a really feature-rich one like Symfony, a very opinionated one like Symfony, you would not go into the database directly and add a column. Instead, you put it in the code and you let the database just match the code. The whole thing is it's got to be one way or the other, right? Either the database is our source of truth from which everything else is derived, or the code is our source of truth from which everything else is derived. Code has the advantage of being able to be shared between developers very easily, put into source control if you know what that is. So that's a very nice place to put it all. So anyway, so I'm going to use, it's got a little built-in tool on the command line to make new tables, make new columns on tables, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is make that. So sorry, we got to do, so it's called make entity, and this is going to be called, so I called the other one, I believe, item tool. Yeah, item tool. So this is going to be item food. These are going to be our food properties. What are the things going to be? So let me, okay, yep, this is all good. So what are all the things going to be? They're going to be the food, the love, the safety. What were all those again? What's the order? Well, I should know that. Well, but it's not exactly the hierarchy we need. So we've got food, love, junk, and whack. Great. So we're going to have food. That's an integer. Can't be null. We're going to have love. That's an integer. Can't be null. We're going to have love. Whoops. Love already exists. Oh, I did it all wrong. Let's add some new fields. Sorry. Food, love, junk. That's an integer. Can't be null. And we're going to have whack, which again I'll change later, can't be null. And then I'm going to add columns for all these guys. So we're going to have earthy, also an integer. We're going to have fruity, also an integer. This is the boring part. Tannic, it's an integer. Spicy, that's an integer. Creamy, that's an integer. Meaty, integer. Planty. There's a lot of columns. And I thought about it, I was like, well, maybe I should just make this a string, and I can like take apart the string and do all these, or not even take it apart, but like it could be a bit mask, right? So if we wanted to say it's either spicy or not, that's binary, 1 or 0, and you could then encode this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-bit, right? You could have a 12-bit number, which would easily fit into an integer, and then you could just encode it in an integer that way. And there's no reason to be that complicated. Like, that's getting too smart. If we were doing like hardware stuff, or we were like super concerned about bandwidth or something, then sure. But that really locks you in. That locks you into being binary, right? It makes it hard to expand later. It also makes it hard to search. The same thing. What if I want to go through all the foods and be like, oh, do I have a lot of spicy foods in the game? Or like, oh, I haven't made any floral foods, but I've got all these pets who like floral things. There's nothing for them. Like, I want to be able to easily analyze the data in that way to make sure that things are balanced in that way, right? If we've got pets who say, I like oniony foods, then there better be a lot of oniony foods, or at least as many as there are tannic and fruity and other things, so that people with onion preferring pets aren't, don't feel like they got the raw end of the deal, So yeah, I need to be able to easily search on that. So doing some clever thing like a bit array or whatever. Yeah, it's a lot of columns. It's fine. We're being maybe wasteful, but in exchange we're getting ease of use in getting and setting these values and everything else, so searching in the database, all that stuff. So that's a great trade for me. I would much rather, if this was like 1990s or whatever, when computers were much less powerful and disk space was more expensive and all those things, then yeah, then you'd make, or again, if you were working on doing hardware stuff, you're like, well, I'm making an Arduino thing, then yeah, think about stuff like bit masks. But for this, no, we can afford to make our lives easier. So anyway, small rant, sorry. We have floral. Yep, that's also an integer. Floral is such a good one too. I mean, that's such an interesting. Fatty is interesting too. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it does have a taste. Integer. And then chemically, that's a weird word. I did wonder, like, should I just call it chemical? But whatever. And then fishy. Already exists. I already did fishy. Okay. Great. So now we have it. And yeah, we'll make them migrate. So, well, let's look at this one thing at a time. So a little bit of an introduction to Symfony, if you're not aware of it. So it's made this new entity class. It didn't ask us for an ID, but it made that because it knows. Now we have our food, love, junk, whack, all these other things. And then it makes all these getters and setters. If you're really old school and you did like, I don't know why I don't have this opinion, because I grew up learning how to program on, like, I learned on the Apple IIe, like one of the most limited machines you could imagine. I mean, that's not really true. There were machines before that people were programming on. But like, I feel like it's an opinion out there. People look at this and go, that's too much. If you're using something that has to generate all this crazy code for you, you're doing something wrong. I disagree. I love the strongly typed, I want this stuff locking me in and saying, no, do it this way, because if you're doing something weirder, you're probably getting yourself into trouble. I like the opinionated framework. Some people don't, and that's totally fair, and I'm sure there are use cases where, if you're making something quicker, something small, you don't need all this junk. But the bigger a project gets, the more useful having these rigid structures is very helpful. So anyway, so I'm very happy to have, and that's another thing. People like, you have to have this tool to help you make this, right? I don't want to make all this myself, but it's like, fine. So I have a tool to help me do it. Problem solved, right? So like, yeah, I have no issue with that, but some people do, and fair enough. And again, for some cases, yeah, it's a lot, but I happen to like it. So anyway, and other people do too, right? This is a popular platform. This isn't like some weirdo, oh my God, what's this thing called Symfony? Like, Symfony is huge. It's been around for a long time. Yeah, I'm not the only one who likes this, but I'm not the only person who, or there are a large number of people who don't like it, right? There are a lot of frameworks out there, so you pick the one that does the things you want, fits the job you need, all that stuff. And in my case, I just have so much experience with Symfony that even it is a little weird of a pick for just an API. It wants to do a lot more than that, but I just have so much familiarity with it. It's so much faster for me. So anyway, so this has made the code part. Now we need to get the code into the database. It hasn't made the table in here. If we refresh, I don't have that item food table. And so the way you do that is you have it make a migration. I accidentally did something weird. So this is a database migration, and this is the part that gets shared around. So if I was working on this with someone else, well, yeah, let's talk about that case first, right? If I was working on this with someone else, I would, they would end up with this file as well. They would run all their migrations, which I'm about to do, and then the database would be up to date with whatever changes. And it will also, if I came into some existing table and was like, actually donated on shouldn't be a date time or something, if I wanted to change the properties, I could make a migration and it would figure out that change too, and then we could pass that around, and then all developers would be on the same page. The other place it's useful, though, even though I am the only programmer, is that when I go to deploy this to, let's say, production, it's the test, whatever, when I deploy this to live Maslow's pets right here, I need to make sure that all these changes get in that database too, and I'll just run the migration there, right? So even if you're one human, it is useful to have these things. And then if I add more humans later, then it scales. Great. So anyway, we will run the migration. And like all this is like, how do you learn all these crazy commands? If you're interested in learning Symfony or any framework, if you think Symfony looks awfully hard, well, all the frameworks, no framework is easy. I mean, I'm sure some are easier than others. But I mean, yeah, right, that has to be. But anyway, they've all got tutorials. All the popular frameworks will have tutorials or like make a blog or make a social networking site or make a whatever, I mean, obviously not like it's not going to rival Facebook, but like make a kind of a site, make a house listing sale, whatever. They'll have these tutorials and they'll show you how to do all this crazy stuff. And then, yeah, when you're first learning, you're like, oh, how can I remember this stuff? And then before long, it's, you've done it 10 times and it's not a problem. So anyway, if I go back into my database now, I will have this wonderful table. Here are my item foods. Blah, 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 blah. Here are all the columns. Now what I'm going to need to do is, and this is another place where migrations come in handy, I need all this data. I need to get rid of this column. This food column needs to go away, but we want to preserve all this data. I don't want to do this by hand. What a nightmare that would be. So there's another thing you can do with the migration is once you build it, do more with it. So here's what we need to do. We need to, first, we're going to leave this food column alone, but we're going to add a new food column, tool ID, I guess. So there will be a food ID. The problem is in Symfony they're both going to be called food. I have not done this very often, so I'm a little bit winging it here. So if this isn't the best way to do this and you know a better way and you're angry at me, I'm sorry. So the problem is we have a food column here. We want a new food column that's going to be a reference to the other table, just like we have this tool column. So I think what I'm going to do is first rename this to be old food. And let me see, I'm pretty sure, I think that's good enough. That's good enough for my purposes. I'm pretty sure if I make a migration just with this, that it will recognize that I changed. Sometimes it seems to catch on to renames and sometimes not. So let's find the migration. The migration, by the way, is just another file that it makes. And sometimes PHP Storm is slow to catch on to these. So alter table, change food into old food. It's long text, default, null, comma, blah, 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 blah. Great, okay, so it noticed to do that. The other thing, so good, that's one migration, I want that. The other thing is I'm gonna get rid of the get food and set food methods. I could rename these to get old food and get set old food, but I don't care because in the end those aren't gonna be there. We're gonna get rid of them. So the other thing I need to do now is we're going to make the entity. I haven't even coded anything, right? I mean, I have, but this is all just data management. But the migrations are, I mean, this is a weird case. I mean, you're seeing some advanced stuff here. I don't know. I mean, this is a weird kind of thing. So anyway, right, I didn't type in the entity name here. So we're working on the item one. We're going to add a new property called food to replace our old one, and it is going to be a one-to-one. So that's a whole thing. So like I was talking about, a user has many pets, one user to many pets, or many pets to one user. Or you can have many to many. An example of that would be friends, right? Ben and Katie can be friends of Abby, and then Abby can be friends of Katie, and Josh and maybe Josh and Ben are both friends of someone else, right? You can have a complex, like many-to-many thing like that. There's probably a better example. I think friends is a pretty good example. So anyway, you can have that many-to-many, one-to-many, many-to-one, or in this case, one-to-one, right? You won't have one food is just going to have, or one item is only going to have one food properties. It's not going to have multiple food properties, and one food row is only specific to to one food. I mean, there's the possibility that I could like get weirdly efficient and be like, oh, these 5 foods happen to all have the same properties, so I'll have them all relate back to this one food item. But that's like hard. Again, that's like, yeah, if we were worried about disk space in the 90s or whatever, then maybe you would worry about that. But right, we don't have to worry about that so hard, so I'm not going to make my life harder in that way. So anyway, this is going to be related to the item food table. Is the food property allowed to be null? Yes, so some items, right, won't be edible, and so then it'll be null. And I didn't have to type it, so this bracket means that's the default value. So do you want to add a property to food so that you can access the item from it? So this would be, the use case here would be like you pulled a food row, or let's say tools. In the code, maybe I would look up this effect and wonder what item it was. Do I want it like a handy link back? Because you might note here, right, like this doesn't tell you what item it's related to. The item tells you what tool. Sorry, let me go back here, right? So we have a tool ID that says, yeah, item number 155 is related to tool 14, but tool 14 doesn't say anything about 155 in here. It doesn't, right? There's not that link back. In code, and you wouldn't want it in the database. And the reason you wouldn't want it in the database is because if you have the same data twice, then things will get out of sync. Like what would happen if there was an item ID and I change it here to be like 110, but it still said 155 was 14 here, right? Then you've got 2 pieces of data that have conflicting information. You don't ever want to be in a situation where you've got conflicting data in your database. And there's like a name of that. There's this whole, I forget what it's called. I forget off the top of my head. That's like, I never took like a database course, and that's like a whole, you go nuts learning that stuff, right? You can go deep, and I have not. But I know there's, I think it has to do with like an N, I don't know, whatever. Someone who knows databases similarly, again, is watching this being upset at me. But anyway, don't have duplicate data is one of those principles. So anyway, but in code, because it's handy, you might want that link back. In my case, I think I'm going to go with the default of no. I'm never going to be looking up a food property and being like, what food item is that related to? I'm always going to be starting from food, starting from the item and then wondering what its food properties are. I'm never going to want to go back. And if I change my mind, I can come in here and change it. So, but for now, I'm going to say no, which is the default. And now we're done. Done. So let's make a migration again. And then this migration, we're going to tweak. And recent versions of Symfony have made this a little more difficult and annoying to do, which frustrates me. So I'm not going to run that migration yet. But also, let's go look at this again. So we can see it has added a food thing here. These are some other interesting properties, which really, I did many to one here. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, so what I don't know. We don't need to worry about this too much, but this means that if this item were for some reason deleted from the database, it's like, should I go and automatically also remove the related food details about the item? The answer is yes, we would want to do that. So, and you could change those things here. And then persist is a similar thing for if you're updating, whatever. I'm never going to delete the food items. I kind of don't care, but that default is fine. I don't know why said items to tools are many to one. Maybe I was thinking of that sort of optimization I was telling you about before, but it doesn't need to be that. But anyway, so food one-to-one, great. Now what we need to do with this new migration, so we're adding a new food ID, blah, 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 changing food to old food. Oh, I screwed things up. Okay, let's delete this. So I didn't run that old migration, so when I asked it to make a new migration, it looked at the database, looked at my code, and said, hey, I still don't see this food, old food thing, so I better put that in here. So that was my bad. I should have run that previous migration, but that's okay, we can delete it. And by the way, if you are working with other people, once you have committed a migration, you may not change it because they might already have it and have run it. But I haven't pushed this up. I haven't committed this code, right? So fine, go ahead and delete it. And also, I'm the only person, but I'm trying to pretend, always pretend like there's other people working with you, even if there aren't, because yourself in 6 months is also a different person who doesn't know who's forgotten things that you 6 months ago knew and knows new things that you 6 months ago, you in the present don't know. So whatever, pretend that you're always pretending you're working with other people. Anyway, so here's what I want to do. now that we've changed food to old food, I want to, as part of this migration, now that we've set up these columns, I want to migrate really all this data into new rows within the new item food table. So, whoops, sorry, I moved that to the other window out of habit. So I'm going to do that. So again, it's made it very annoying, but I found a way to do it somewhere in here to get like access to the entity manager and stuff. Didn't I? Or like container get. I thought I did this. I thought I got a service in here somehow. So, no, this is going to be a horrible thing. Symfony has made it more, it used to be very easy where you would say, yeah, I've got access to like, I don't know how to talk about this without getting super detailed about Symfony things, but they've locked down the migrations more, and I understand the reasons for it, but like in this case, I really do want, at the same time this migration happens, to do this other stuff. It seems like I'll have to do it in plain vanilla SQL, which is very disheartening to learn. That being said, maybe I can get away with it. So it would be in the post up. So you can make a post up function. I'm pretty sure I don't care about that. Let me see. Yeah, I don't care about that. Although I don't know if you're supposed to leave it in case they change things later. So let's leave it in. So after these changes have been made, this is going to be troublesome. Let me see if I can get the entity manager? Whoops. Here's the connection. Yeah, we can create a query builder. Oh, so maybe this is how we do it. Let's create a query builder. Okay. So it's been a while since I've had to do it this way, because in other places the code, again, it's much easier, but we want from, yeah, so okay, so we're going to select from all the items, so we say item class and alias of item, and we want to select everything, and we only want the ones, whoops, where, sorry, this probably needs to be iStar. We want to find only the items that have, let's go find them. Only the items where food isn't this funky representation of null that is totally different from other items. This is another reason why this was horrible to do. So we want all the ones where, and sorry, what's that column called? Food. We want all the ones where item food doesn't equal, I don't know, we're going to call that PHP null. Set parameter, and then we have to, and that is n semicolon. Okay, so it's got this whole thing. The query builder is its own whole crazy thing you could learn, so isn't that fun? So we want to find all of the items that don't have this null value, right? Because we want all the ones that actually have a food thing in them. Great. And then to get those, we'll get query. Ooh, get. Do we just execute? Just execute. Oh, this is scaring me. Again, I don't usually operate at this level, but I haven't done this before. In the past, when I've had to do this, we're using an older version of Symfony at work, so I am able to do what I would like to do. So this is new. So this might be suboptimal for you. Why does it get query parts? I'm just going to try execute. I don't know what this is going to give me back. I don't know why some weird number I don't know about is calling me, so I'm not going to pick up. And hopefully it doesn't make a ton of noise. So let's get, these are food items. And what I want to do is var dump the food items. And I'm also going to die. So this is what I'm going to do. I want to be able to test this thing. If a migration runs, it's not willing to run again, and Symfony keeps track of that in this little migration thing. So it has all the different migrations that it has run, so it knows not to run them again. I don't want it to finish running this. I want to test this, though. I need to test this and make sure that it's giving me the sorts of results I want. So let's ask it to run migrations. Doctrine migrations, migrate. Anyway, so what I've done is I'd put in die means stop running right now, abort, abort. So I hope that means it's not going to finish running the migration. Actually, it's a good thing I left off here, so whatever. Let's see what happens. Because I just want to see the results. Okay, an exception occurred. Select star where it doesn't equal. Okay, there was an access violation. Check blah, 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 near item I. Where select I. Syntax near entity item. So maybe I was trying to use doctrine query language. I assumed that's what it wanted, but it looks like it didn't. It looks like it actually just wants plain SQL. So great. That's why we would like being able to test this. Object. Here's a query string. That's not what I wanted you to give me. I want you to give me, what does this give me? A statement. You're going to give me a statement. What can I do with a statement? I can execute a statement again? Okay, let's see what that gives me. Gives me a true. Oh man, this is unfortunate. We don't want the SQL. We want it. Get first result. That's something. We want all the results. Oh, that kind of result. You know, we're just gonna have to figure out how to do this. So use query builder in migration. Sorry, specifically about Symfony. How to use the query builder? This is half my job. I don't know what I would do without, and I'm about to say Google even though I'm using DuckDuckGo. I don't know what I would do without the internet. I don't think this is what I'm going to want. Because this is just going to talk to me about using migrations on a very basic level. Blah, 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 validating objects, blah, 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 blah. Okay, not helpful. Use query builder on collection type. I don't know what that means. I mean, it's possible I just have to do this really old school. I assumed that it's like, oh great, we got the query builder. Let's use a query builder. But maybe I'm just really supposed to execute, maybe just run a query. Fetch all. Ooh, maybe we want fetch all. Okay, fine, let's do that. Select star from item where item food doesn't equal, and again, we're going to call this PHP null. Let's see, does fetch all take params? Yeah, it sure does. Okay, where PHP null is one of these. I hope that's the way they want it. So let's see what that gives us. I mean, I can just write plain SQL. Check it out. Okay, so that got us all of our items. Great. So what we want to do is we're going to go over all these guys, get this food thing, deserialize it, and for every one, make a new row in that other table. I can do that. So for each food items as food item, sure. We know that every food item, and this is just a straight array, so it's not an object or anything funny, so it's sometimes, I don't know, people like to say that PHP is an array-based language rather than an object-based language, but whatever. So we want the food items food thing, and we want to PHP, or I guess it's just called deserialize. Or unserialize? Unserialize, okay. And that's PHP's built-in unserialized stuff. So this is going to give us our food properties, or we'll just call it food. And if we var dump the food, and let's just die on the first one, let's see what we got. Here we go. We have an item that has blah, 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 these properties. And also, actually, let's echo out, because another property we're going to need is the food item's ID. Yep, that's true. We're going to need that. So let's just, new line for pretty output. Let's just see what that is. Okay, so item 1 in the database. Let's verify this is true. If we go to item 1, the orange has these various properties. I believe it. It has to love, for food. Yep, integer 2, integer 4. Great. Okay, so we can do this for one item. We can do it for all of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to this connection. We're going to insert a new row, and I'm hoping they do have insert. Because what's important to get is this insert ID. Is like, what is the ID of the row you added? I have never used this before. So I'm going to find out what it does. Table expression seems very ambiguous to me. What is this? Table expression, insert into, great, that's what I want. So they're probably saying table expression because, again, if you get into deep SQL, it could be like a view, or like there's all these weird things you can do, right? I'm not doing any of that stuff, but whatever. Okay, so yeah, we're going to insert into the item food table, right? That's our new guy, item food. We're going to insert a new row here. So what do they want? Then they want all the data, and they also want to know the types, which is interesting. So let's do this again one piece at a time. So this is going to be long, so I'm going to break it up onto multiple lines just for, again, easy readability. So what I want is food is going to be food, food. And let's help myself out. So you may have noticed, let me show you. When you serialize things with PHP serialize, an advantage to using that over JSON encode, and the reason I used it here, is it stores the type of the object, whatever it is, if it's an integer, a string, or some class that you've made up. So I have this class called app model item food. The reason I did that is it's very helpful for the IDE to be able to say, yeah, this is of type app model food, item food, because now the IDE, if it knows that that's what the object is, it can autocomplete this stuff for me and say, oh, you want to know that it's one of these, right? You want to, so I have all my properties right here. I don't have to guess anymore. So strongly typed. This is why strongly typed. I want strong opinions. I want strict types, right? I want those things because it helps for stuff like that. It's like I don't have to remember now because you're telling me. With a delightful IDE. This is also why, I don't know, I get why they taught in college, here's how you program in the equivalent of Notepad, right? But like, oh my God, IDEs, please use them. Don't be weird about that. You're just holding yourself back. I don't know, I feel like every now and again that opinion comes up still and I don't understand it. Like, oh, you won't learn how to program for real. It's like, yeah, but I'll do it a bajillion times faster. And I don't know, maybe I can say that because, again, I've been programming since the early 90s. So how old was I? However old a fifth grader is, right? So maybe because of that, I have learned things that maybe other people wouldn't if they learned IDE first. I don't know, I don't know. So junk, that was the other property. I couldn't remember, possibly because I'm also typing. All right, so food, love, junk, whack. It also said it wanted types. That's very interesting. I'm curious to see what will happen if I just do this. This is going to be our new row ID. So let's save that, and let's echo out that new row ID, and then we'll see what it looks like in the database, assuming it creates it. I'm hoping the types are optional. No, they're not. Earthy doesn't have a default value. Okay, that is very true. Okay, so that's something that could be set up in the database. Whatever, it doesn't have it, so we have to provide the values for earthy, fruity, tannic, spicy, creamy, blah 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 blah. Yeah, I think probably the easiest way to copy those is going to be to do it like this. Yep, sorry, let me get this on screen. So I am just going to do this. Isn't that fun? Bonk. Trying to be smart. I could probably do a search and replace for this, but I don't know. Somehow that seems harder. Creamy can also be 0. Meaty, also 0. We're not going to have any of these things. Those things I'm going to have to go back and put in myself, right, for all these items. Like, we don't have that data. So that's going to be the fun part. Fatty, and I don't know why I'm deleting the, yeah, PHP Storm is nice enough to do that. I've noticed that sometimes there is a way to like paste without doing that. You can be like paste raw. It might even be just like Control-Shift-B instead of Control-V. Whatever, it doesn't matter, it's already done. Okay, so let's see how this works. If it was more columns, I might have worried more about it. So this is add a new thing called 1. So we have, right, we echoed that ID. So let's check it out. We should have now in our item food thing, we don't have it, where did it go? Maybe it's because I died and didn't give it an opportunity to like finish up. It's possible that, let's see, this connection, is there like a flush or something? I don't know. I'm a little surprised to not see the column in my item food. Huh. Yeah, that's curious to me. So what is this connection? Dball connection insert. Let's look up some stuff about that. Doctrine dball connection insert. Connection insert. Here's an example. Connection insert table name, parse some values. Interesting. Add a reference. Ooh, interesting. So we'll do like handle the references for you. I was going to do that manually, and honestly, I probably will continue to do so. Saves the pool to the database. Update, insert, get the last insert ID. That's interesting to me too, because I thought don't see anything about. I don't know. Okay, so I don't know. Let's just try it and let's assume it's going to work. So the other thing we want to do once we have made this, we need to update, and this will be easy. So we'll do this connection, and this is just an execute query. Yep. So we're going to update the item table. We're going to set the, I believe it's called food ID. Oops, I minimized that guy. Right. So on this item thing, we need, instead of food, we need this food ID column, which doesn't exist yet because I haven't let the migration run proper, but it will. So we need to update, going back to, sorry, I'm looking at my other monitor again, whatever, where is it? You're over here. Let's get rid of that. So food ID needs to equal the food ID, and this is where ID equals the item ID, and I'm going to throw limit 1, although I probably don't need that, because it's by ID, and then we need some parameters or something, or do those go in the execute query as well? Yeah, the parameters go in here. All right, I'm going to do that on a separate line. So we're going to have food ID is the row ID of the new food we just made, and the item ID is the food item ID that we got up above. Okay, which I don't know if those names are the best, but there they are. So let's see if this works. So again, the principle is all these things will run. We'll put these back in. Whoops. It's going to add a food ID column, but we still have this old food stuff. Ooh, so we need to pull that out of the old food column, because that's what it's going to be called. Unserialize it. That gives us its food, love, junk, and whack. We're going to make a new row in our new table, the item food table, which already exists with all this data. This is going to give us the ID. Is that, does it say return the number of affected rows? So that's not what we want. So we do want to get row ID. Let's say new row ID equals this connection last insert ID. Yep. Okay, that's what we saw. Great. Always good to check what the things say. So that's why we were getting a 1, coincidentally, right? It was going to be the first one, but there's only inserting 1. So great. So we have the last insert ID. Whatever row this was, that needs to be the food ID in that new food ID column that we're adding. And then on the next migration, we will delete the old column, the old food. But we need this to run first. So let's see what happens. I'm hoping this works. Column not found. I don't know the column item.food, it says, in select star from item where item food doesn't equal. Because it's old food. See, I already messed up. It's old food. So create unique index. That already ran. We can undo this migration. That would be the best way to do that. And I always forget how to do that. I think it's migrations execute, and we do down, and then we do the number. I think this is right. If not, I'll Google it. So this is like undo the migration. And yeah, so when you make a migration, it makes this up and this down part, so that in case you need to roll back, and there are reasons why you would need to roll back besides I made a mistake like I did. If you have multiple programmers, it's very likely that they should be working on different versions of the code that will then get, like people could be working on totally different features of the same code, and then you merge them all together in the end, which should be very hard, but thank goodness we have tools that make that pretty easy. And so if you're going back and forth between different versions of the code that have different migrations maybe from each other, when you make that switch, you have to undo all the migrations from this version, or I should be saying branch of the code, and then you switch to the other branch, and then you run those migrations back up, and if you had to switch back, you run those down, and then switch and run the other ones up. So you need these downs, but it generates them for you, and it was also useful just now. So anyway, I fixed that other guy, so let's run this migration. And it says it ran. Let's see if we have wonderful new rows in our food table. We do. So ID1 was already taken. I should have truncated this table, but it really doesn't matter. So we have all these guys, and if we go back to item, we should see orange has a food ID of 2. Yeah, they all have food IDs. It worked. We did it, you guys. And pets still don't care. But all the data of the food is in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the migration to remove the old food. I don't need that anymore. And again, here's the power of this, right? When I go to deploy this on the live site, it's just going to run all this shit and do it. Or if I had to give it to another program or whatever, just bam, 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 got all your data, great, it's done. This is what a migration is for. It migrates your data. I'm a little sad I had to do it in plain SQL. I would have preferred to have done it with Doctrine because it's a little easier, but It takes care of things like these defaults. I wouldn't have had to do all this nonsense. But I'm sure this performs better. I mean, it does. It has to. It performs better. And I don't know. Someone smarter than me, many someone smarter than me are making Symfony. I kind of have to trust that they did this with good reason. Whatever. I worked with it. I learned a thing today. We all learned a thing. That's so fun. Almost an hour. Pets still don't care about their favorite foods, but we're getting there. So let's remove the old column on the item table. Let's close all these tabs. So we no longer need the old food column. Get rid of that. Make a new migration. Great, and then I'll just double check. It's always good to double check, especially if you are working with many programmers. There's a good chance that things go all out of whack. So drop the old food. That's what I want to see. And again, if we had to go backwards, it would re-add it. We would lose the data, right? That doesn't preserve you the data. So if your data is important, going back these kinds of changes, you can see that doesn't help. But gosh, yeah, and that is a problem. But anyway, let's migrate. We dropped, and you can see it tells you what it did, right? Alter the table called item, drop the old food column. Great. So now we have we've migrated everything. So the first thing I'm going to do before I worry about the whole flavor thing, and again, it's like, why didn't I just do this right the first time? Because now I've created so much work for myself. Everything in the code still thinks that it can find this item food class and use it. So before I delete this class is no longer of use, although this is interesting. I forgot that I was using these things. Things get multiplied based on like various preferences. I think if you're hand feeding things and stuff, I call this multiply function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all the places this class is used, this old class. Don't want it anymore. And replace it. So here's the thing where I made a new food. What's this? This is the upsert item command. So this is a command that I run if I want to make a new item. I can show you what that looks like. So I have app upsert item and I name it. Let's make an item called tasty thing. Says, okay, what's it called? It's called a tasty thing. What's the image? And I would say it's a meat, or it's animal. It's animal meat tasty. Is it edible? Yes. And then it asks me all these properties. Oh, what are the things? This is going to utterly fail because this doesn't exist anymore, right? Like I'm trying to do it in the old way of storing food. So this is one of the places like, oops, that's broken, better fix that. We can fix it. I think this, because it's an admin tool, I'll fix on my own time. Let's go and look at like the items. So like, I don't think this would be being used in here anymore. App item food, but it's not app model item food. Was that entity item food? Yeah, now there's two things called item food, just make it more confusing. Okay, so we're not using that. Inventory service. Tell me about item food. So what is this? Total food using quantities. I see. So this is multiplying by the quantity. This is where multiply is used. Okay, it's used for the quantity. So this is if you have fed your pet multiple instances of some items. It has to like total all that up and say, okay, but what's the total food value I'm giving to the pet? And I could apply the foods one at a time. I didn't want to do that because that will actually be a disadvantage to the player. Because what happens is when you feed your pet foods, some fraction of the food value given becomes some hours of love or safety for the pet, both. So, and there's some, I don't know where that is, but you know, so if you, let's say it's a quarter, it would be like, okay, for every 4 food hours you give to a pet, then it should give 1 love and 1 safety. I don't remember if it's a quarter. We might soon find out. But anyway, I want to add them all together at once, because if you feed your pet 2 items with food value of 2, if I took a quarter of those, then it would seem, okay, a quarter of 2 is a half round to 0, a quarter of 2 is half round to 0, and then you would get no bonus. I don't want that. I want to, you know, give the player the biggest advantage possible, basically, and then the advantage they'd expect of, oh, I gave them a lot of food, it should count it as a whole. So that's what this is doing. This is adding all those up based on the food that's going in. So item get food is different now. It's an item food, but it's a different kind of item food. Do you know the right one? Yeah. Yeah, this needs to change. So I have this weird thing that's meant to add together item foods. I think I should just move that. I think I should just move that onto this class. Like if I just add those, that'll work fine. I think this is a little. I feel a little funky having done this, but I was like, yeah, I just want to treat these objects and add them together and multiply them and do all this stuff. And the multiply is for the quantities. I forgot. I thought it was for that love part, but I probably just divided by 4 somewhere else. So let's take these out of here and go back to the inventory service. It's complaining. This is the wrong kind of item food. Yeah, let's just delete the old item food, and then that will sort it out. So it's like, hey, I don't know what item food that is. Yes, you do. It is that item food. I did a little sneaky shortcut. That actually a guy at work taught me, because I didn't know it. So give me an item food, and it's like, great, I'll add it to you as a new item food, but it shouldn't have an ID. I don't think we would use it that way. That's why it's a little weird to do this to an entity. Like, you shouldn't be just making up new entities on the fly that you're not intending to save. Well, I don't know if that's true. I think I take that back. This is a weird use case. I'm gonna that I know. So anyway, food, add is not found on item food. I just added it. It super is. Public. It's probably still figuring it out or something. Where do you think you're looking? I don't know. Whatever. It'll figure itself out. Because this is the right one, and it does have those functions. So I think it's just. I don't know. Sometimes the IDE probably got something in its cache or something. It tends to figure it out eventually. I don't know if I need to synchronize things or what, but or maybe just this file. Is there a synchronize? I don't know. I'm going to trust it's going to figure it out. Let's look at other things while we're going. So get food returns an item food. That's for an item. That's the wrong one. Add multiply. Right. Those I deleted. In a service, we have that. So let's look at total food then. Total food equals deserialize an item list from ingredients. Yeah. Okay, that's doing a totally different thing. So that is, again, like when I'm passing the items around, we're doing more. Serialization isn't 100%. Why? What's going on here? It is an item food. Oh, I know why. Okay, sorry, let's go back. So where was the usage of this? We can't just call it that way. We have to do get food. Do you know? Don't you know? Total food is of type item food. That's the ingredient food. The ingredient food has a property in app get food in app service item food. What? App service item food. It just doesn't know. It's just confused. What's going on here? Yeah, there's still references to the old item food thing. That's what's getting it all screwed up. Is that true here too? Yeah, that doesn't exist. Stop. Wait, app model item food exists. Why is that squiggly? The name is already in use by app. Oh, so it's not. Sorry. Oh my God. Okay, we need to find all references of that in the code. The fact that they were called the same thing is screwing everything up. So we have app model item food. That needs to go away. That's no longer a thing. Stop it. Same here. Not a thing. And here's... there was a thing when we wrote this. Interesting. It was just type hinting anyway. But wow, that's interesting. Okay. So are you happy now? Yes, you are. Great. Okay. There was just no wonder. I was like, what is going on? Why is it so confused? Get whack, and then we have the same things down here, but we need our parens. I don't, whatever. Let's do that first. Paren, and your get love, get junk, get whack. What is this thing even? This is a helper for me. This is the command for upserting recipes. Yeah, that would need to be updated. So where's the part? Now I'm very confused. Where's the part that deals with feeding pets? Maybe we should find that. Upsert item we know is still broken. Maybe I'll just fix it. Okay, let's fix it. That needs to be, so don't clone it. Okay, sorry, so I'm looking at this. So let's see what this does. Private function food, what is this? That's to ask you for your food. Yeah, okay, so it's edible if the food isn't null. Accurate. It's going to ask you to confirm that, yes or no. Great. It is edible, great. If the item's food isn't null, then the food is the item food, else we make a new food. Yes, that's true. So, and if we do have to make a new food, then we have to tell the database to persist this new food item. So this is telling it like, hey, I'm making a new row. remember that funny ORM, which stands for God knows what. We need you to, I don't know, I almost feel embarrassed, but whatever. And then you can't just set things like that. You have to call set food using get food as a default. So we've got all this stuff again. This is get love, this is get junk, this is get whack, and then this is set love, set junk, and set whack. And then we're going to do, all right. PHP isn't case sensitive, but I am. Sometimes it's case sensitive. Okay, and then you set your food to be that food, which we shouldn't need to do. We would need to do it if it was a new one. Okay, so and this is, I don't even know. It's weird to, if item get food, then this em remove item get food. I don't actually know if that's technically required. So we just have to manage the data differently. It used to just be a field in an array, and we just update that. Now it's a row in a database, right? So if it goes away, we need to delete it. If it's created, we need to make sure it's instantiated in that row, right? There's like all these, the requirements are a little different. In some ways, you're like, gosh, it seems like you made it harder. It's only because I'm having to reprogram this stuff. Like, if I was doing this from scratch, then it would be fine. Like, what did I write? 3 more lines of code? Who cares? So yeah, that's great. So where's the part? So I need to find this. Somewhere in here, there's a way where you can feed your pets. And this is, whoa, if you're interested in the game, maybe we're actually finally onto something you care about. So where's the part where you feed things to your pets? This is preparing food, setting sell prices, throwing away. Must be in the pet controller. Pet equip, pet unequip, pet get the logs, pet the pet, pet praise the pet, feed the pet. Okay. If your item was an array, make it an array. Get all those items. Yeah, if you don't own them or something, freak out. Okay, here's a feed function. Else, go and feed the items to the pet. Great, here's the feeding. Here it is. So if the pet is dead, it can't do that. I don't even know. I don't think I'm going to even, inside pets could die. I don't know if I'm going to do that in this game. I think I might. I have an idea for like a wound system, which is something else I might record me making and would require less tweaking old stuff. But anyway, if any of the items don't have a food item, then get out of here. If somehow you selected a non-food item, shuffle them. So I feed them to the pet in a random order, which is interesting. And do I not total? I do. Okay, here's the totaling happens down here. Interesting. Okay, so anyway, I shuffle up the food, and I think the reason I did that, so again, according to Maslow's hierarchy, if you don't have enough of a, like let's say food, if you don't have enough food in your tummy, if you're not satisfied food-wise, then you're not going to care about safety, love, and esteem. So if a food gives love, it's possible that you feed them a candy, but the candy as a food doesn't give them enough to bump them out of hungry, and so they're still hungry, and then the food item, whatever. So like there's an ideal way, like I guess you could try to feed it starting with the items that have like the best food to, like the highest food to love ratio, right? Do some sort of weird sorting like that in order to try and give them as many of the individual food items, whatever. I was like, you know what? We're just going to feed them in a random order, and however the needs fall out from that is fine. But then in terms of, I am happy to see, I was worried at first, like, oh no, do I not total them up like I was describing earlier? No, I total them up. It's actually an eighth. And apparently the remainder I do an odds thing for. So the thing I was talking about before where it rounds down, it doesn't actually. It does a whatever. So anyway, let's fix this up to work. It's pretty easy. If the food, if it has a food value, if it's not 0, whoa. Is that supposed to be whack? Sorry, yep. If food get whack isn't 0, then increase them by the get whack. And actually, I wonder, increase whack. If it's 0, it says get out of here, so I don't even need to do that check. So let's just clean that up. Just do these. Here, we can get rid of all this. Okay, so get food, get love, and get junk. So increase all those things. Increase the pet's needs in this order, right? First food, then love. Again, and this is to be in the. This is the preference that's kind of to the advantage of the player. If the pet is hungry, so it wouldn't gain as much love, well, we give it the food part first. So that part is being nice, and I felt like, and yeah, I'm going to still say that the work to like choose the optimal ordering, I don't even care that much. So shuffling them up to at least be, and the reason you might say, well, why even bother shuffling? I don't want there to be just some weird order where it's like the ID number order and like people trying to optimize around ID numbers of foods. Like, I don't even want that to be a possibility. So it's like, just shuffle it, make it random. And let me just confirm, all these are probably gonna say if it's 0, don't do it. Love, yep, if it's 0, I don't know why. This is a thing that bothers me about PHP Storm sometimes. Okay, but yeah, they all check for 0, get out of here, then remove the item. I think that's kind of it, but let's check if there's any more references, because I'm worried I didn't find them all, to like just arrow food. Compare, that's fine. These are pet properties. This is the food thing itself. These are changes. Here we go, found some more. So this is if the pet eats on its own. So this could be the pet is out and then it like eats the food that it gathers immediately, I think is where this is used. Yeah, it says it right here. Immediately ate the blank, whatever. So we need to update that as well. Get food, get love, and get junk. Let's see if there's any more cases of that floating around. This is, again, the food of the pet. The food of the item is pet changes is its own thing. Item food is its thing. Set food, blah, blah, blah. Add foods together. Upsert item. Right? I was thinking I might do sizes of items, but I'm like, nah. It's, again, that was like a fiddly detail. It's too complicated. And these ones we know are broken because we deleted the file, but at the time, people, it's not even going to matter. You know what? And I'll just delete that annotation if it's not actually going to help. I don't think that would break anything as an annotation. Like, I don't think that would prevent it from working, the fact that the class isn't there, but certainly if it's not actually representing anything, let's just get rid of it. Okay, I think this still works, so let's test this now. So all this, wow, I've done so much. How long has it been? An hour and 16 minutes. I might just keep going, because why not? Sorry, I'm opening the wrong thing. Where do we want to go? Here we go. So let's go over to the pet. And let's try and feed one. Oh, and did I keep IOP? Also, I have red, white, and blue, which was not intended. Yeah, I guess I kept IOP. Let's not own that other pet that I'm not supposed to own. We'll give him back to, I don't even know what user it was, it doesn't matter. And let's try to feed my pets and see if it still works. So I'm gonna keep the network tab open here because I'll see the like feed action happen. So let's feed this red and the celery to Roy. Looks like it worked. Looks like he's sated. We should see it in the logs. You fed Roy celery and red. Great. That reads a little interesting because of all the capitalization, but whatever. And I guess just cooking maybe. I don't think cooking should care, but I don't know. Let's do fish and charcoal. Do I have charcoal? Yeah, let's do fish and charcoal. Make some grilled fish. I don't know why that. I don't think that would have affected that. Oops. And then let's feed that. I think feeding is still working. Let's try and make a new food item. So while I'm here, should I make a legit food item that I actually care about having in the game? May as well. I don't know what that would be off the top of my head. I'm gonna do a chocolate powder plus butter equals cocoa butter just to be a doofus. I don't know. Let's just try making something. It doesn't really matter. I can delete it afterwards. So let's bin console. Sorry, it's app upsert item. So let's make a new item. Right, I have to name it. I don't know. If I'm going to add something, I might as well add a real thing, right? We have fish, we have seaweed. We don't have any we don't have like beef, right? Or goat or lamb, right? But your pets can beat up goats. It says that they wrestle them, so they presumably don't kill them. Not that I'm against having your pets kill animals. I think that's fine. They should go hunting their animals themselves in a way. But anyway, but not that goat. They wrestle that goat. I'm just kind of trying to think of what else I might add. We could update something else, actually. So let's find, I think there's the rice flour. They should be able to eat the rice flour. I thought that was true anyway. It's images rice flour. Oh, it already is edible? That's interesting. Let me check the database. Maybe we've just stumbled into a little bug with this thing. So let's find the rice flour. It says food ID 17. That could be because I just now made it. So let's try something. Let's go, also, actually, let's browse. Is 17 the last row? No. Here's another one with all zeros. Huh, I wonder if I made things edible, but they just have no effect. Did I do that intentionally? Let's try something else. Let's make the rice flour. Let's say it's not edible. It should have deleted row 17. Yep, no 17. Okay, let's make the rice flour. It says it's not edible. Great, okay, let's do it again. Yes, it is edible. All right. Ask int must be type integer, but null was given. Okay, so it tried to, okay, this is something else I wanted to do. This is where I was talking about default value, so I haven't done this yet. When we're making a new instance of the item, the food item, we want default values for everything, and we want default values of 0. So in the entity, the item food, because what it's saying is like, whoa, you asked me to make a new thing, but this field, you told, right, what we told it when we were creating is I kept asking, is like, can this value be nullable in the database? And we're like, no, it can't be nullable. It can't be null. We want a 0, which I don't know. In this case, maybe null could have made sense. I don't know. But anyway, so it doesn't want to save with a null. So we need to give a default value because the default value for any variable is null. So that should make it happy. Whoops. Yes, edible. Great. Food hour will say that if they nom on this flour, it's like a 2. And let's see if it saved it. So that should be, it won't reuse 17. Looks like it's on the next page. Oh wow, there's so many more than I thought. 79 presumably. I mean, if we look at the rice flour, it should be here. Rice flour. Rice flour. Food item 79, food ID 79. Other place actually maybe to check if it works is the item encyclopedia. So if we look up any of these foods, like apricot, oh, I don't show the details here. I forgot that. Yeah. So I don't do that yet. I forgot. Okay, so that's fine. But it does know that it's edible, which is good. Edible is true. Great, because I think that same rule applied. It was like, hey, it can't be null. And it was encoded differently, but it's whatever, it still worked. Okay, great. I think the thing to do then would be to make pets have a flavor that they really like. An hour and 20 minutes. Who cares? Let's keep going. Let's make pets care about foods. So we're going to need a new column. I think for simplicity, so here's the thing, right? This is where I was talking about, like, okay, we might make a column on the pets called favored flavor, right? And that would mean that every pet only has one. Do we want pets to have multiple favored flavors? And if so, is it going to vary? Might some pets like 3 things and other pets only like 2 or 1 or none, right? Is it going to be a variable number? If that's the case, then we would do another one of these relational things, or it would be, that'd be a many-to-one relationship, or yeah, one-to-many, depending on the point of view, right? From Roy's point of view, he's one pet with many favored flavors. From the favored flavors point of view, it's like, yeah, there's many flavors that map to a single pet. I think for simplicity's sake, I'm inclined to go for just one. Just say like pets really like X thing, they really like meaty or creamy or whatever, and just have a flavor that they like. I'm just wondering if that limits me later on. What if I do want pets that are like, because that could be an interesting thing too, or like maybe a system I want to put in here that is in SciPets is this affection level, where it's like as you do things that pets like, they gain a permanent affection for you. It's different from this, you know, do they feel loved at the moment? It's this permanent affection thing that builds up, and then you can do a thing. It's like, oh, they've leveled up in affection. Choose how you want to adjust them. Do you want to give them a point in a skill, or do you want to like encourage or discourage a particular relationship they're having or something? One interesting thing to put into that system would be like, I don't know, introduce them to a food. It would be kind of weird to be like, no, now you like creamy things, Roy. Like, you love me, right? If you love me, then you like creamy things. It's a little creepy to put it that way, but it would be an interesting bonus to maybe give to pets. Maybe for that reason, I would put it instead on like a weird magic item, where it's like the magic flavor scroll that makes pets really like creamy items, right? So, or something like that, right? You can imagine having weird systems that let you add multiple preferred flavors. So then I'm like, maybe I do want it one to many. But you know what? I think I'm going to go with one. If I have to change it later, then I do this whole migration process like I've done now. I mean, the other way to do it would to put a column per flavor, you know, like we did on the food items, right? Like each item of food says, am I fruity, am I tannic, am I spicy, we could have all these same columns on a pet that's like, does this pet like earthy, yes or no? Does this pet like fruity, yes or no? Does this pet like tannic, yes or no? Honestly, now that I think about it, that might be the way to do it, because then it, gosh, is that weird? See why there's like 20 different ways to do everything in programming, and you're like, what's the right one? I'm throwing my hands up in the air, and I don't know-ness. You can't see that. I'm sorry. This is what programming is. There's a million ways to do anything. I kind of like that. I mean, having to add a column for every flavor is a little lame, but like I wouldn't want to make item food flavor that's like a key value pair, because then you get back into, oh, that's hard to sort on. That's the other question, right? What's easy to sort and query on? It's easy to sort on the creamy column, right? You can just sort numerically like I was doing over on the items, right? It's like, oh, I just want to sort by, does it have a tool? Or the tools is a good example, right? Which ones are given the most perception or the least perception, right? Oh, it's 2. It gives any perception. This must be the stereotypical torch. It gives you perception but makes it so you're less stealthy. Right, you can do that when it's like that. So if I had made the flavors be like this, there's other ways I could do it that would make it harder to search on, but would mean the advantage would be not having all these zeros, right? This is going to be stupid. For a lot of foods, it's only going to be a couple of these things. It's going to be like, oh yeah, this is oranges, so it's going to have fruity of 2 and nothing else. Maybe I would give it floral of 1, vaguely floral orange or something, right? Like maybe, but like for most foods, most columns are going to have 0 on it. That's a hint that maybe a better or a different structure might be better suited to this task, right? The fact that most columns, most rows, there's going to be a 0 in there. That's a hint that maybe things could be different. I don't know. That's true of the tools too. I mean, and I think kind of the middle ground made here is right. Like again, in SciPets, those would all be columns here, and so every single item, even if it wasn't even a food, would have those. So at least we've said only foods have these extra properties, right? So that makes it, I don't know. I'm happy with this middle ground. And again, for searching and sorting, I like that. I want to be able to find where are all the fruity tasting foods by sorting on fruity. But anyway, let's, oh, and also I was thinking, by the way, we can now imagine updating this item editor I have on the command line to ask me what are the flavor components, so I might do that. But anyway, now I'm thinking maybe every pet just has, does it like this flavor as a column, and then every one of these is a column on every pet. I don't know, I can't decide. Partly it's because I'm being recorded. I'm like, I can't just sit here and be quiet for 2 minutes. Well, it wouldn't take me 2 minutes, but like I don't want to do that to you. But then I'm just sitting here rambling instead. So maybe I will just think for a sec. I don't know that I'm going to come to a conclusion. I think I just have to do it. I think I'm just going to have every pet like one thing. That's the system. That's simple, right? That's something we can understand. That's the other thing. The more details in a system, the more complicated it is for a human to understand. This already, you might argue, it's like no one's going to know. They're going to be like, is this food floral? Right? Like this system might already be verging on or past the point of too complicated in some ways. I don't know. Maybe the SciPets thing. I don't know. I think this is interesting, so I'm going to go with it and we'll see how it plays. I think I'm going to make every pet just have a single thing they like. They're going to have a column that says what's the flavor they like, and that flavor will contain a word: earthy, fruity, tannic, spicy, creamy, meaty, planty, fishy, floral, fatty, oniony, or chemically. And that's it. That's what I'm going to do, because I don't, whatever, a lot of reasons, I guess. I don't know. So let's make, sorry. So the reasons are, I think one is going to be good, that's easy to understand. We can still do interesting systems like a scroll that changes the preference. It could be like, it rewrites it. This scroll makes your pet like chemically things now, or whatever, right? We could do that. Again, I don't want dislikes, so I don't need to worry about, like, if we were going to have dislikes, I might then go, maybe I should have a column per one, because then we could have, oh, the pet's creamy is -1 because it hates creamy, and planty is 2 because it really likes planty, and, then you could get complex preferences that way. But like in terms of feeding your pet, I don't want to have you to sit there and bust open your custom Excel spreadsheet trying to figure out what you should feed your pet for the optimal effect, because it has like +2 here, -1 there, -2 somewhere else, +3, like that's bananas. So I think one thing, what does it like, done, and then let the foods have, and you know what, when I think about that way, maybe every food should just have one flavor component that is like, this is a meaty food, and not worry about like, well, it's oniony and it's meaty. But no, I think that would be too simple. I think like onion and meaty, yeah, we're gonna have like garlicky fish or something, right? So like, yeah, we want to be able to have those multiple flavor components. Or, you know, ice cream is going to be creamy and fruity, or creamy and, what do you even call chocolate? What flavor is chocolate? I don't even know. We'll worry about that when we get there. So anyway, let's make a migration, or sorry, make entity. We're going to update the pet entity. And you may have noticed, you can, for my thing, so the things that start with app, sorry, I'm pointing with my finger, why would I do this? The things that start with app are things I made, and I made my thing require that you put the name of the item you're making. For this like built-in Doctrine Symfony thing for making entities, if you don't specify the name, it asks you when you get started, hey, what's it called? I don't know if you noticed. So sometimes I've done it and sometimes I haven't. It's whatever my brain decides to do at the moment. I can't explain. So anyway, we're gonna update this pet guy. I'm gonna drink some water. I've been talking a long time. And we're just gonna call it favorite flavor. Favorite flavor done. It's a string. It only needs like 20 characters. It should not be nullable. Every pet should have a favorite flavor. Done. I think I ran all the migrations. Doctrine migrations migrate. Just want to make sure. Like we saw before, if I create a migration without having run a migration, then we're going to duplicate that unrun migration, you know? So, okay, let's make a new migration. I'm confident that it's just going to be one thing. Alter table pet, add favorite flavor, done. Okay, we've got that new favorite flavor on our pets. I think the first thing to do, a couple things. So that column is going to contain text, but I only want the text to be one of a certain set of values. In a database like MySQL, there are types called enums, which are a feature in a lot of languages and in some databases as well, where you can limit the field and say, yeah, you're going to be a string, but only one of these 5 strings. Doctrine doesn't expose that, that I'm aware of. Maybe it does. Ooh, it's another opportunity to learn. Doctrine enum, do you do it? Nah. Well, let's see, MySQL enums. The type system contains of flyweights. There's only one. Solution 1, mapping of varchars. Okay, so it's used by quite a lot of developers. When using enums in a non-tweaked database application, you'll get errors from the schema tool commands with the unknown database type enum. So by default, Doctrine doesn't know about enums. Okay, so it doesn't. They're saying, yeah, you could do it with strings, you could register all this funny business, blah, 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 blah. That really doesn't help me. Because where I really want the requirement to be is in the string. So I don't know why I minimize that, because we're going to need it again, because we're going to look at other stuff. We're going to look at the database. So what I have done, another sad thing, so MySQL does enums, great. Lots of languages do, great. Doctrine doesn't, that's too bad. PHP doesn't have enums. Drives me bananas. I do not know why they don't have enums. So I kind of fake them because it's very useful. I don't know, should I explain what these are? So, you know, you can say, hey, this variable is of type integer. That means it can store a number. It's got to be a whole number, be positive or negative, but it can't be the word bananas. It can't be, you know, a whole pet instance, whatever. It's an integer. Or you say, hey, this class is a string. It can only contain a sequence of characters. This is of type pet. It can only have pet objects, can't have anything else, right? In a lot of languages, you can say, hey, this is an enum. I've made up this new enum. It's an enumerated type. It just has one of several values. And then it's enforced everywhere. You can't assign it a number, a string, or something funny. PHP won't ever force that for me, but I can at least give, and that's one feature you would want of an enum. So that we can't have. But I at least can have these values where I refer to them and they have some stringy value, but I don't have to, because the problem is, what if I make a typo? Like if every time I had to refer to items donated to museum, what if I got the casing wrong? What if I mistyped donated to donated or something, you know? So at least by having these constants, the IDE will help me with these. So as soon as I type items it's going to be like, do you want items donated to museum? And I'll just press enter and it'll be there. Or if I accidentally typoed items already, I won't be seeing anything and then I'll know that I made a typo, right? So that's the other advantage of an enumerated type. And that part at least I can get from PHP by doing these fake enums that I'm doing here. So we're going to do a flavor enum. And we don't need to do that now. And I'm just going to make all the different ones. So I don't remember what my list is. Here it is. Great. Come on, cursor. Play nice. So we want const, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be different things. So we're going to have earthy, and we're going to have fruity. And you know what? I could copy the same list in here again. Although I don't know if it'll make it capitalized for me, but I would like it capitalized. Tannic, spicy, creamy. Maybe I should find out. Do they have that? Do they have, like, make me capitalized? Whatever. There aren't many of them. Again, if I was more worried about it, maybe I would investigate harder into a way. Like, if there was, 1,000 rows or something, I might be like, well, we're going to make the computer do that for me. But if it's 10 rows, I'm happy to do it myself. It would take longer to figure out how to not do it, chemically. All right, so these are the only values that should be in sorry. I noticed the icon was wrong here. Again, little things telling you when you're doing things wrong. That's what an ID is for. If we go to the pet entity, it has this new favorite flavor. Scroll. Yeah, favorite flavor. It should have anything down here. So, yeah, right, it's only going to accept a string. In another language, you could say, oh, only accept a flavor enum. We could do that, but it's not going to have the effect I want, because it would expect like a class of type flavor enum, which isn't what that is. So, whatever. It almost looks like it would work there, but it won't. It won't do what we want. So, unfortunately, I could call set favorite flavor and pass in anything. That would be super unfortunate. I could pass in a value that isn't one of these these types here. But anyway, we'll just have to live with that. We did what we could. So now here's another problem. This is another great thing of an enum in a lot of languages. You can say, oh, hey flavor enum, give me all of your values that are possible, and it will give them to you as an array. And that would be very useful, because what I want to do when you sign up with on SciPets is, here is pick one at random. Sorry, I don't know what I was trying to say. So when you make a new pet, when you sign up, I'm just going to have it assign a random favorite flavor, and you're not going to know what it is. So it would be very handy if we could just ask the language, oh, just give me all of the things. And now I'm very curious to know, can you actually do that on a class? This is why it's great to talk about these things, because now I'm learning. This is the third thing that I've learned. What were the first two? I don't remember. Doctrine can't do enums, and the migrations using SQL. Those are the other two things I learned. Good to remind myself. PHP get consts in class. That would be a reflection thing, I happen to know. Get constants. Wow. Get all defined constants from a class regardless of their visibility. It has no parameters. An array of constants. That's pretty cool. Okay, so this is going to do what I want, I think. An array of constants where the keys hold the name and the value is the value, and it's the values we want. So that's good to note. So cool. So let's put that aside. I'm going to use that. So I can do the thing I was talking about. Okay, so wow. And you know what? I'll just make a helper function here, because this could be helpful for a lot of things. So I'm going to do, we're going to make a public static function called getRandom, which is it's not a pure function, if you know what that means. Maybe this is a little gross to do. So we want to know, and this is kind of based on what they were saying, right? So we want flavors equals new reflection class. Huh. And they use the shortcut class. That's interesting. And then we want to get all the constants. Sorry, we want to get constants. Why is that not? Oh, because I need parens. We want to get constants, and what we actually want is the values. Wait, the values are what we'd be working with anyway, right? If you want to return, the keys hold the name and the values the value. Right, the values are what we want. Okay, and then I have array functions. Pick one, pick a flavor. Okay, return it. Great. So I made some array functions to help me out. There's some There's some things at PHP like any and all, whatever, do a thing. But yeah, oftentimes I've got an array of things like when your pet is getting loot, it'll be like, it went to the garden, it could get like one of 10 different food items here. Which one should it get? I want to pick one at random. I don't want to write this nonsense every time, so I just say, array functions, pick one. And actually in this case it ends up being about the same length, but it's handy to, whatever, pick one. That is very semantic. I know what the hell it's doing, whereas like, I mean, you kind of do, but array rand is kind of a weird function. It can return multiple results sometimes, blah, 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 whatever. Pick one. Array functions, pick one. So pick one of these flavors, return it. Great, now we have a function that will get us a random flavor. So I'm going to go back to, so not back to, we haven't been there yet. I'm going to go to the account controller where you register. And when you make a new pet, set favorite flavor to flavor enum. Maybe I should just call this one, whatever, get random, it's fine. Get random, get a random flavor. That's it. Now your pet will have random flavors. So here's the other thing we might make. This would be a useful thing that we can't do, again, with the migrations. When we do this migration now to add these flavors, we want to assign flavors to every pet. So let's do that. I mean, we want to do that part. Did I already run this migration? I think I already ran this migration. I'm going to run it down again so that I can run it up and test this. So let's look at the data and see what it looks like now. So if we look at the pets, yeah, favorite flavor is empty for all these. It can't be null, but it can be an empty string. If it was literally null, it would be, yeah, it would be displayed this way, italics null. So anyway, yeah, well, favorite flavor, why is that a tongue twister, has already been added to the database, so we're going to run that backwards to undo it because I want to add some logic here to assign a random favorite flavor to every pet. Which is yes in French, and then public function post up. I don't need this to do, thank you. So we need to do the same thing where we go through every pet. There's, sorry, I'm pausing because there might, is there a way in MySQL to like pick an element at random? But we don't want to pick a row at random. That's what we're going to find because that's a common problem people want. Like, I would love to say, like, just write one SQL statement. It's like, update all these and set each guy to have a random element from this list. I don't know if that's doable. Let's just copy the other thing and, yeah, never mind. Let's just do what we did before here where we did fetch all, right, and then loop over them and set it, and it'll be fine. So, wrong migration, here we go. So we're going to fetch all the pets from pet, and really, actually, all we need is the ID. We don't need any of this, so just fetch all the IDs from the pet table, because we know none of them have flavors. It's not like before with a food thing, it was like, well, some of them have food, so we need to migrate them, and some of them don't. No, in this case, we need all of them, and really all we need is the ID. We could have made the select on the other migration more selective, but whatever, it doesn't matter, and we're going to call this pets. Pets. And it's just going to have an ID, so we're going to have a pet ID because that's what we selected, and that's what we're going to update on. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this. Are we going to? I don't know what's happening. It's probably because I did this. Okay, this connection execute query, and we'll do this on multiple lines again. We're going to say update pet set favorite flavor equals favorite, or we'll just say flavor where ID equals ID. Again, we'll limit 1, even though that may be unnecessary. And then we have the params, and the param is going to be the ID is the pet's ID, and the flavor is going to be, we can use that same thing, we can use a flavor enum, get random. And then all of our pets will be given, we are missing a closing paren, or closing bracket. Yeah, all of our pets will have favorite flavors. Let's run this. I mean, it should be as easy as that. Unless I screwed it all up. I didn't. Oniony, creamy, creamy, fruity, creamy, fishy, oniony, creamy, meaty, creamy, fishy, creamy, fishy, 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 fishy. All right, there's some tannic. Okay, so now all pets have been given a favorite flavor, doesn't actually affect anything about them. So here's the other thing we need to do. So they have a favorite flavor. My thinking is that the item food thing, I'm thinking for now 0 or 1. Either yes, it's fruity, or no, it's not. Nothing else. Which means I could have done, these could have been a different type. They don't need to be int of size 11. We didn't need that much space if it's really just going to be a 1 or a 0. But whatever. In the future, maybe I'll refine it and make it be 0, 1, 2, whatever. But for now, is it fruity, yes or no? Is it tannicky? Tanny? I don't know, whatever. Is it tannic? No, I think tannic. Tannic's the adjective. Whatever. Is it tannic? Yes or no? So let's go into the part where pets eat. And there was like both the do eat and the do feed, because those are vaguely different. So here we go. We want to increase they should feel, they don't feel more loved. What does the pet feel? If the pet eats a food it likes, it's happier, but in what way? Is that esteem? Like, I feel good because I ate the food I want? Or does that help you out? Because it doesn't help you feel loved or safe, does it? That's an interesting thing. Like certainly if you feed the pet, then the pet should be like, wow, you gave me my favorite food, bonus love, right? Yes. But if the pet just eats it on its own, and it is a food that it likes, what need does that fulfill? Is this a failing of Maslow's hierarchy? Is we don't have like, I'm just feeling good? I think just feeling good about yourself means esteem. I think that's what it is. I think it's esteem. It's like, yeah, I'm feeling great about myself. I ate my favorite dinner. I wrestled a goat and won. But we don't even have esteem as a thing that's increased here. But I guess this would be the time to do it. So if you have eaten a food and it's your favorite flavor, then you'll gain esteem on your own. Great. Okay, that's interesting. So let's do that. We're going to say, so we know the pet has a favorite flavor. And this is a little wacky. And it's a little, in some ways, insecure. I think it's fine. So this is what we're going to do. We want to know the item has a food. Sorry, so the food has, get all these things, chemically, creamy, earthy, fatty, etc. We don't know which one we want. We want the one that matches the pet's preference. And there's a funky way we can do this. We want to call get, and we want the pet's favorite flavor. And we're going to call whatever that string is, that's the function we call. This is in some ways super gross as a programming thing to do. Like, I'm going to call a function based on its name with strings that come from somewhere else. Like, because what this is, here's a potential vulnerability you could imagine. What if you were a sneaky sneak and you somehow got into the database? In this case, I feel okay about it for this reason. But let's say you went into the pet and like somehow, maybe you found an exploit in the scroll that changes flavors, right? Like we were saying, ooh, there could be a scroll that changes the pet's flavor, favorite flavor. Maybe you find a way to like cheat it and make it call the favorite flavor like ID. Because now, when I go to get the properties, I'm going to say, let's get creamy, let's get fruity, that sounds weird, right? Let's get fishy, let's get meaty, right? From the food thing, now it's going to say, oh, floral, is a floral property here? But wait, this pet's favorite flavor is ID. Let's get ID. Wow, this ID value is huge. It must have so much of that flavor that the pet likes, right? So that's a place where we could have, that is a potential vulnerability in calling functions in that way. In this case, so the scenario I gave where maybe someone sneaks in a value they weren't supposed to, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. You always have to check your user inputs. And I feel pretty good about this because it is so many steps removed. Like, because it's data coming out of the database that's being used to also get more data out of the database, that's pretty safe. Like the data if I have bad data in my database, I have a different problem, right? It's unfortunate that that's potentially exploitable in that way. It would be real bad if that like gave you the possibility to steal someone's password. If somehow you could like call the pet's favorite flavor, owner password, and then somehow that made it get, that could be a problem. But I don't think that's going to be an issue here. I don't think that would work. I think the worst you could do is crash out your pet's activities whenever it tries to eat. It like crashes because it finds a function that doesn't exist or something. I don't know, maybe I should be doing sanitation on this and saying, hey, favorite flavor has to be a letter. It can only be letters, That's an interesting thought. See if it has a flavor. Do I want to do that? Like, I'm talking about it, I'm going to do it. So if it doesn't match A to Z, or A to Z, the pet get favorite flavor, then we're going to throw a new exception. Pet's favorite flavor is invalid. Better. We can do better than that. I'm sorry. We can. That's that. I was thinking too hard. I was doing too much work. We can ask flavor enum. Is a flavor pet get favorite flavor? There. We'll make that function. Okay. Let's do that. Good. See, this is why it's great to talk about things. I mean, I told you the potential exploit. If I hadn't done this, you wouldn't have known that maybe these future scrolls that change pet flavors will let you exploit the game somehow. But no, this is good. So we're going to have a public static function here. Is it a flavor? Give it the flavor, and then we just need to know here the valid flavors again. And then we want to know, is the flavor in the array of flavors? That's what we want to know, and this function is Boolean. Good. We're checking our inputs. I mean, see, and that's the interesting thing. So never trust user input, right? That's like #1 rule of, especially on the internet, but other domains for sure as well. Never trust user input. If you have a field on a form that says enter a number, assume that someone someday is going to enter a string and screw everything up. Even though you're like, but I made it type number in HTML, it's like, yeah, but they don't have to go through your form. They can do other things, right? People are going to be sneaky assholes sometimes, or you're going to have bugs or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you might not get the data you're supposed, in air quotes, to get. So you gotta never trust user input. This I wasn't going to check because this isn't user input. This comes out of the database. It's not user input. I trust the database. I trust the data in the database. The database it has to be good, or else I've got crazy problems, right? But maybe it's not good, right? No, I should validate this, especially since I'm calling a function in this way. I don't know what might happen. It's undefined. This had better be one of the valid flavors. This is great. Let's check. Is it a flavor? And sorry, we want to know if it's not. If it's not a flavor, then get out of here, throw an exception. People will report the bug to me if it's a bug, right? If it's my fault, then okay, fine, nothing super bad happens, it crashes, and people are going to say, I tried, I logged in, I got kicked out. That's the current way it manifests. And then I'll look into it and I'll see this log. Pet's favorite flavor is invalid. I'll see that log in my errors and I can track it down. Or someone is cheating, and then fine, they screwed over their own account, and then they might report it not realizing that because they tried to do that I caught it or whatever, whatever. We'll figure it out. So this is great. So anyway, let's get that flavor from... Okay, right, we've done all our type checking, whatever, if that's what you want to call it. Now we're going to get the food, we're going to get the property. Let's say they liked creamy, we call get creamy on the food. Now we got a number. What we want to know is the flavor not 0? Actually, we can just say, we will say has favorite flavor if it's not 0. Right? If that value isn't 0, then that flavor was there. So, and then we'll say if it has a favorite flavor, then we're going to increase their esteem. Their self-esteem will increase because they ate a food they like. And do we want to do it? So here's the interesting part. If they really like the food, but it doesn't provide, like, what do we give them for that? So here's what I'm thinking, right? If we were like, okay, give them the same amount of love they got out of the item. Well, what if it's not an item that gives love? Like, love I'm having given out of most candies and things, and that's interesting too, because if if a pet eats a candy on its own, it gets love right now. It's kind of like, oh, I feel loved because I ate candy. Really, it should probably be feeling esteemed there as well. But anyway, there are plenty of foods that won't, like eating fish. The fish doesn't feel loved because of an intrinsic property of the fish. It does because you hand fed it. But there isn't an intrinsic love bonus or whatever out of that food. So we can't just say, okay, then gain love equal to food, because there's going to be tons of foods you don't get that, right? Like you made a steak, that only has a food component probably, so we need to give the food, but we also don't want to do food, because what if it's a candy? It's like a super delicious candy. If it eats that, it should be like, wow, that's great. So I feel like maybe we want like a sum of the two values, and then probably some fraction of that, or maybe we just make it a fixed number. Maybe we're like, look, you ate a food you like 4, or maybe 4 is the maximum. Maybe that's what I do. Let's do that. So let's find what's the smaller value. The food's food value sorry, the food's food value plus the food's love value, or 4. You get a max of 4 food item, and if it's less than 4, then you'll get less, but a maximum of 4. Maybe we'll just do that. 4 hours worth of esteem out of eating a food you really like. Because the thing I don't want to do is, like, I'm going to put, we're going to have some prepared foods. There already is one that gives like a lot. I think it's the mellow water? Or no, pumpkin. I added the smallish pumpkin, but it still gives like 12 hours worth of food, right? So like, I don't want it to scale up, and I'm going to let you make, you made like a whole turkey or something. That should be like 2 days worth of food. That shouldn't also be worth like 2 days worth of esteem or something. I don't think. Like, I got to gorge. Maybe it should. It's like, well, I got to gorge myself on a fucking huge turkey, and like, I don't know. And when I think about it that way, I'm like, well, maybe it should. Maybe it should depend on the size of the food. Okay, you know what? It will. Fine. It's going to depend, but we're going to do something different. We're going to take the ceiling because I want to give you something, and I'm just going to divide by. So we're going to take this total value and we're going to divide by something. Most things don't give less than 4, so I think I'm going to give 4. And we can check that now. Because now we can do this before. Oh my god, we can do this before, right? So look, I've got 16. So that would give you 4. And I got a bunch of 4s. And then here I have a 3, but it gives love, 3 3s, right? So this wouldn't give you anything, even if the pet liked whatever this food was. 79, wasn't it the new one we added, the flower? Even if it was like, I really like floral things. Well, but I said the ceiling. So it's going to be 2, divide by 4 is a half. I said make it do the ceiling. Don't round. Well, in this case, rounding would be the same, but whatever. Round. So it's going to round up. So they would still get 1 out of that for eating the flower. They'd be, oh, yeah, it was great. It's great for. I mean, another thing we could do is say maybe it is the strength of that flavor. Ooh, that's a better way to do it. Guys, that's a better way to do it. Okay, so we don't want this. We want the favorite flavor strength. We just want to increase it by that. We don't need to do that. Sorry, we don't need to do that. So just increase it by that way, because that makes sense too, right? Like I was thinking the flower example maybe doesn't give you a lot of food, but maybe it's like super floral. And you like floral, so you're like, wow, that's super floral, that's what I like, right? So that's how it should be. The flavor component will just be like how many hours worth of esteem or love, if you hand feed the pet, is it going to get out of, yeah, that makes so much more sense. Great, even better. We don't have to do any weird math, just do that. I'm almost tempted to just inline that, but whatever, we'll leave that as is, and then I get some junk component. Yeah, that's fine. Does Esteem care about that? What does junk care about? Nothing. I'm just kind of tempted to, because this is also weird and extra, and because the two don't affect each other, I just want to put that all afterwards. Consider favorite flavor. Okay, great. So favorite flavor goes in. Fantastique. And again, there's nothing in here is, I haven't assigned flavor values to any of these foods. I'm going to have to go back and do that at some point. But okay, so this pet's eating for themselves. Now let's find the part where, and we'll probably want to copy this. Let's find the part where you feed pets. Here it is, do feed. And we should do the same thing. But I think if you feed the pet its food, and it's a food it likes, I want them to feel loved because you gave them a food they liked. Should they also feel esteemed? I mean, they still got to eat a thing they like. They should still be happy about that. I'm wondering if that means I should divide by 2. Just like, yeah, we'll just split it. Like the love part, round up, and the esteem part, round down, or something. Does that make sense, or is that kind of weird? Be like, well, I don't feel as good about myself because I didn't eat it myself or something. I don't know, maybe that makes sense. Let's just do it. I just don't want the bonus to be like, I don't know. So each of these will be divided by 2. We'll increase the love. They already get a love bonus for hand feeding anyway, so. And that's an interesting thing too. I almost feel like this whole thing now is of the favorite flavors. Maybe maybe that should just replace the love bonus that you get out of food entirely. Like the love bonus I've been giving it to previously is sweet things, like snacks, right? Snack food's like, oh, you gave me snack food, great. But like, this is kind of about what is it that you enjoy as a snack, right? But all brains like sugar and salt and fat. But I have fatty as a flavor here. That's like the whole, like if you see a food that has salt, sweet, and fat, like that was designed to make you crave it. Like that is what brains like. Because they're hard to get and important for your body. But not in excess, which is the world we live in, a world of excess. Which is great because I love candy. I eat candy in excess. I'll think about that later. For now, let's just give it. We'll have it. They already get the love component. Maybe because they already get the love component, we should just say and it's a steam component. They already get love out of being hand fed, so maybe let's do that. Let's just give them the whole steam. You know what? Let's just give. Think about this so much. I mean, it's fine. This is what this is. Half of programming, I'm sorry, is me sitting here and thinking and going back and forth, so you get to watch that part too. 2 hours. I just hit 2 hours precisely. How exciting. I thought I'd look at the time after talking about that. Yeah, I think that'll do. Increase esteem by the flavor. If you give them the food they like, they get an esteem bonus. I really feel like they should be getting a love bonus out of that. But again, I feel like maybe the love bonus replaces. Maybe I do that. You know what? I'm gonna do it, you guys. I'm doing it. So let's do this. That's how much love you get out of it. And when you eat foods yourself, there isn't a love component. Because that's weird. The whole point of when you eat the food yourself is you're only supposed to get the love because it was hand-fed to you. So I'm just going to drop the love part of food. The love is now the flavor. I love this flavor. And I should probably add sweet and salt? I don't think so. That's an interesting thing, though. Is that what the love part contains? Is like, I always like this food. Like I said, it's about going back and forth. Get love. Or, yeah. I like this food by default. That's what the love component means. I like this food. This is a tasty food. I like it. And if you give it to your pet, and the giving it to the pet is the part down here where they gain a love portion of the gain, which is the food gain. Huh. I'm wondering if, like, I should include the esteem as part of this, like, or do I? That's interesting. Or maybe we just have to put the love increase up here as well. But because they get the love bonus down here, this is the thing. I don't want to duplicate it. Maybe we just take the love bonus out there and they just get some bonus safety when you hand feed them. And the love part they're getting, which they wouldn't get if they ate it themselves already. Yeah, I think that's what that means. I think that means we don't give them the love bonus down here. They're getting a love bonus. Sorry, they get an esteem bonus when they eat it on their own. That's all they get. If you give it to them, they get love and esteem. And also hand feeding gives an amount of safety. I think that's fine. And I do want it to be proportioned because I don't want it to be something where like, well, in order to maximize safety, I give them a bunch of tiny foods that won't fill up their stomach. You know, I don't want it like per food item per feeding or something. Or that's the other thing. If it was per feeding, it's like, well, you gave them 5 items at once, and now you're at a disadvantage because you didn't do it individually, right? Like, I want to have you to optimize in that stupid way. Like, this is a stupid thing to ask the players to do. It's not fun. So, yeah, just make it a fraction of the food gain. So whether you feed them 10 items all at once, or 10 items separately, or 2 items that have the same total value as 10 items, you know, whatever. Just be the same. It's okay, guys. Do whatever is convenient for you. You'll get the bonus regardless, right? I mean, there is an amount of fun in being able to fiddle with the system, be like, I've mastered the system by playing in the super optimally way, but this is not the place for that, I don't think. So anyway, yeah, tried to make sure in every way conceivable, including this little remainder thing that's like, it works no matter how you do it. And then, yeah, get the love based on the food has some intrinsic, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to like this food. I think that's fine. I would be inclined to rename this from love into something else That's like a separate boring thing I can do on my own. You know, to just be like deliciousness. I don't know, like just people. This food's great. You know, no one can deny. And I kind of wonder if maybe fatty. Again, I'm like salt, sugar, fat. Those are things that brains like. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions. Some people are like, oh, I hate sweet. And, you know, things can be too sweet, right? Which isn't reflected here. Like, yeah, you might like floral, but you don't want it to taste like soap. You know, that like, so in this system, I could say, well, it tastes like 10 floral and you like floral, therefore you like it, right? We're not like reflecting ranges properly here, but that's a level of detail that I don't think is really, I don't know, necessary. Maybe I'll be proven wrong and we'll implement it later, but I think this is good. I mean, the thing to do now is I'm going to have to go through all this and assign these flavor values to every food. It's going to be a pain for the 77 food items that already exist. But as I go forward, whenever I make a food item, it'll just be another question that I fill out. It'll be like, how many hours worth of food and how tannic is it done? You know, it'll be simple. So I think this is it. I think we have this system. I mean, let's make sure that I can still feed pets and it doesn't break. So I believe this is running locally. Time is ticking by, so my pets should take actions. This changed, right? Wasn't one of them full, or what happened? I fed him, maybe not. Maybe it's not running. Oh no, there we go. He weaved some fluff into cloth and yeah, lost some food. That's why I don't know what happened. Anyway, so let's try and feed him. Let's feed one of these guys blueberries and see that pet's favorite flavor is invalid. Is that the one I gave an ID? Oops, sorry, I smacked my, I gave him the favorite flavor of ID. It's good to see that that works. I don't remember what it was before. Let's do fruity, because I like fruit-flavored things, so Roy gets like fruit-flavored things. And blueberries don't taste fruity. Well, that would be a thing I could check, right? So, because that's going to happen right now. Hey, I got a fly in my house! Put that guy outside. Glad to see that's working too. Let's feed the blueberries. It doesn't have the fruity flavor, but just make sure nothing's crashing, right? Nothing. Great. And when we test, we know that other part is working because it ran by that logic and went, well, that favorite flavor isn't valid, so good, we tested it. It only took 2 hours, but favorite flavor mechanics are in the game. Some little tweaks were made, right, just now, as discussed. This is how a game is made. It took 2 hours to do this. I don't know if that was because I was talking or because that's legit how long it just takes to do something like this, to code a system like this. It takes 2 hours of time. I don't know, that's not unreasonable. Especially considering like all that wackiness. We're like, oh, we gotta migrate all the old data to this new format. That's a pain in the ass. You know, yeah, check your inputs, make sure that the flavors are actually flavors, set up this kind of fake enum type. I didn't know about this. This is a great new thing I learned. I'm gonna use this more. To validate enums. I mean, right, like, because what I could do in theory too is in the pet service, or sorry, in the pet, where's that pet entity? For the setter, that would be a great place to make that check. It's like, well, we can't, I mean, and I don't know if I want to do that, honestly, because I don't know that I need to add that overhead. It's not really that much overhead, but it was down here, right? So when we set favorite flavor, we could check that too. We could say, if not flavor enum is a flavor, the favorite flavor, then we could throw an invalid argument exception and say, what? No. New invalid argument exception, favorite flavor must be a value from flavor enum, right? And then we could throw in, so then we could do the type checking there. I mean, that's kind of stupid. What we would prefer is if the language just did it for us. I don't know, that's an amount of protection. This is making sure that the bad data doesn't get in the database to begin with, which if we put it here, in theory, we don't need to make the check in the other place because we've assured that the data has gone in there properly, but bugs can happen and whatever. I don't know, I'll leave this in here. I mean, this is a poor man's enum. I wish PHP had real enumerators, but this isn't bad. This is interesting. And you know, something else we could do, I could make an enum base class, like an abstract enum class that just has like is valid or something that they all inherit. I think that would work. I'd have to check. That gets confusing when you were like, well, I want a new reflection. Oh, are you looking at the child class or what? Whatever. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that was interesting. I hope 2 hours of this isn't just like boring you beyond reason. I don't even know what I was trying to say. I was like, blows your mind, but that's not, blowing your mind is exciting. I hope it wasn't boring. And if you're interested in seeing more of these things, please let me know. Or for specific things, like, I don't know, maybe pet flavors was, I mean, you're not going to know. You're going to be like, oh, I didn't think that pet flavors was interesting because it was all this nonsense migration. But it'd be really interesting to see how X is coded. Well, X might involve more horrible, boring things too. I mean, that's just the fact of programming. Some of the things are more interesting than others. I thought it was all interesting. I haven't done that migration, that style of migration stuff before. I'm going to remember that and do it at work, probably. Well, but again, we're using an older version, but we're going to want to update Symfony to use a newer version. Then we won't have the things, the services. You won't have the dependency injection for your migrations. And there's some stupid way you can do it anyway. Whatever. It was good. I learned things. Whew, sorry, I'm yawning. So I'm going to stop recording. Comment. I'll probably do this again. I don't know. Whatever. I'm done. I'm shutting up. Tell me what you thought. Thanks and goodbye.